Okay guys, good afternoon. This is an Explain Everything video for lesson 5-2, perpendicular and angle bisectors, since I could not be there today. Please watch the video all the way through and then you're going to try the practice. Okay, so in this figure here, we have CD is the perpendicular bisector of AB. Don't forget, when it says perpendicular, that just means it's making a 90-degree angle, and you can see that on the figure. And then we know when we see the word bisect, that means it's going to cut it in half. Now, an interesting thing happens. If I draw in points C to A and C to B, these guys will also be congruent. And that's really what we're going to take a look at here in this lesson. Okay, so the main thing we're going to talk about today is this perpendicular bisector theorem. So you really just have to read along. It says, if a point is on the perpendicular bisector of a segment, then it is equidistant from the endpoints of the segment. So over here, if PM is perpendicular to AB and MA is equal to MB, then we can conclude that PA would be equal to PB. Now we also have the converse of that theorem, which basically just flips it. If you knew that PA was equal to PB, then we could conclude that PM would be the perpendicular bisector. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to practice finding a missing side length using algebra. If I use my perpendicular bisector theorem, I can figure out that BD is a perpendicular bisector. So what that means is that BC is congruent to AB. And so we can set up an equation, 6x minus 10 equals 4x. And now I'm just going to use algebra to solve this guy. So I'm going to say minus 6x on each side. I'll get negative 10 equals negative 2x. Divide by negative 2, and I'll get x equals 5. But class, keep in mind, we always in geometry need to read the question. This question said, what is the length of AB? It didn't say find the variable. So now that I know that x equals 5, I've got to plug it in. So AB is 4x, 4 times 5 gets me 20. That's the answer. All right, guys, here would be one, if I was in class, that I would give you guys as a you try. But since I'm not, we're just going to do it together. So in this problem, SQ is the perpendicular bisector. So I know, if I use that perpendicular bisector theorem, that PQ is also going to be congruent to QR. And so we can use algebra to solve. 3n minus 1 equals 5n minus 7. I'm going to bring the baby to the mama. So I get negative 1 equals 2n minus 7. Trying to get the variable alone, so add 7 to both sides. And we'll get 2n equals 6. Divide by 2, and I'll get n equals 3. That's great, but again, keeping in mind what the question is saying, the question wants the length of QR. So now that I know that n equals 3, I've got to use substitution to plug it back in. QR is 5n minus 7. We figured out n is 3. And so from there, 15 take away 7 is 8. 8 is actually the answer to the problem. All right, folks, on problem 2, it is a word problem. What I'm going to do is I'm going to skip this for today, and when I return, we will talk about this one. So let's just move forward for now. All right, guys, this is talking about a special relationship between the points on the bisector of an angle and the sides of an angle, and we're going to take a look more closely on the next page. So I'm going to cruise forward and go to page 9. And in this case, one of the things that we can see is that AD is an angle bisector. And so you can see it's cutting the angle into 2 equal halves. This piece is equal to this piece. And when that happens, the perpendicular segment, so from here to here and here to here, it's making a perpendicular line. These are equal. So on problem 3, we're going to use that angle bisector theorem to find a missing length. If you look in the figure, I can tell that NR is the angle bisector. You can see this part of the angle is equal to this part of the angle. What that means is RM equals RP. So I'm going to use algebra to solve this. Please ignore my dog. I think there's like a lizard at the door or something. So RM is 7x, RP is 2x plus 25. We're going to bring the baby to the mama. So I'm going to do minus 2x on each side. We'll get 5x equals 25. Divide by 5, and x is 5. Now, just like the other problems we've done today, that is not the answer. That's what x equals. They want to know what RM equals. So at this point, I've got to go back to RM, which is 7x, and plug in that 5. So RM is equal to 35. That's the answer. So here is our little you try problem. Same type of thing, guys. C to F is the angle bisector because that piece of the angle is equal to that piece of the angle. By the angle bisector theorem, I know that BF has to equal DF. So I'm going to go ahead and set up an equation. BF is 6x plus 3. Good Lord. And DF is 4x plus 9. Oscar! Come here. Oscar! Oh my gosh, it's actually the neighbor getting its mail. All right, guys, so now we're going to go ahead and we're going to bring the baby to the mama. Minus 4x on each side. So I'll get 2x plus 3 equals 9. Minus 3, and take it up here. We get 2x equals 6. Divide by 2, and we got x equals 3. Same thing, not the answer, because in this question, they wanted me to find FB. FB actually equals 6x plus 3. So now I've got to substitute 3 for x. I just figured out x equaled 3. Now I'm going to solve it. 18 plus 3 is 21. That's the answer to the question. All right, a couple last questions here, just summary-wise. In this one, they want to know what is the relationship between AC and BD. And so first I see that they are congruent. No, we can't conclude that. There's nothing that says that they are congruent. Now we're down to B and C. B says that BD is the perpendicular bisector of AC. That's not correct because AC is not the segment getting cut in half. This is the correct one, yes, because AC is the perpendicular bisector of BD. If you can see, BD is the segment that's getting cut into 2 equal pieces. Okay, next one, number 2. What is the length of AB? And you can see this is that perpendicular bisector theorem. So since A to D is 15, A to B is also 15. Those are 2 congruent pieces. Last one, they want me to find the length of DC. And this is also the perpendicular bisector theorem, but going the other way. So if CB is equal to 18, then CD also needs to be 18. Okay, guys, that is it for Lesson 5.2. I hope you loved this Explain Everything video with the crazy dog barking incessantly in the background. Your homework is the 5.2 practice that's in Canvas. I want you guys to do these numbers, 1 through 8 all, 11 through 15 all, and then 20 through 28 even. These are going to be due by Monday. Have a great weekend.